Discover 8 shocking Roman punishment methods that transformed lives in incredible ways. Marissa's heart raced as her fingers danced across the keyboard, the excitement of discovery thrumming through her veins. The faded manuscript lay sprawled before her, filled with tales of brutal punishments that turned victims into advocates for justice. An idea sparked. She envisioned her middle school classroom transformed with fire and passion. But as the reality settled, dread crept in. Would her students connect with the brutality of ancient Rome, or would they shrug it off as another irrelevant chapter in a dusty textbook? Searching through the dusty archives felt like wandering through the ruins of her own dreams. The walls of the small-town library echoed with the weight of history stories yearning to be told, yet somehow unearthing a conflict within her as she stumbled upon disturbing parallels between the past and her present. Her grandfather, a once respected lawyer in Willow Creek, lost everything to a corrupt system, leaving a shadow on their family. The thought churned in her mind like a storm cloud. Was it right to burden her students with such truths? Doubts twisted like vines around her heart. She feared igniting a controversy that could cost her job, but something deeper propelled her, the urge to uncover truth, no matter how painful. Pacing her classroom, she replayed her grandfather's ordeal in her head. Loss, disgrace, and frustration seeped into her thoughts. How could she teach her students about the justice movement in ancient Rome while remaining tethered to the constraints of conformity? The very authorities she wished to challenge, the school administration, could see her as a radical teacher rather than an advocate of enlightenment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each day in class, as Marissa presented the grim realities of Roman consequences, her heart strained. The students' eyes flickered with uncertainty, irritation swirling in the air, yet some began leaning in, curiosity breaking through their initial resistance. But with each breakthrough came the undeniable weight of her leading. What if Mr. Thompson disapproved, the whispers of discontent growing louder among parents? Caught between inspiration and repression, her muscles tensed with each board meeting approaching. Would the school board hold her accountable for awakening her students' interest in justice or mark her as a troublemaker? The stakes felt unbearably high. As she prepared for her upcoming presentation, a sense of exhilaration mixed with dread coiled around her, the clock ticking each second like a heartbeat echoing through the silence. Her grandfather's haunting legacy loomed over her, intertwining with the newfound fervor growing among her students, a flame that might burn brightly or scorch her. As Marissa looked at the eager faces in her classroom, uncertainty flooded her. If she unveiled the injustice buried in their shared history, she could either shatter illusions or ignite a revolution. She swallowed hard, knowing that whatever path she chose could reshape Willow Creek forever. The tension tightened in her chest. Was she ready to confront the ghosts of the past for a chance at a better future? As the weight of the decision hung in the air, the line between her duty as an educator and the safety of her career blurred, leaving her with one unshakable truth: sometimes, the path to justice led through tumultuous waters, fraught with perilous choices. Marissa sat at her desk, fingers poised above the keyboard as if waiting for the breath of inspiration to return. The impending board meeting loomed like a dark cloud, and with every passing second, the weight of her choices pressed heavier on her. She wrestled with her instinct to educate her students about the harsh realities of the world, a process that could nurture empathy and awareness, against the risk of facing the same failures and injustices her grandfather had suffered. Her mind raced with thoughts of how to present the material in a way that would not only resonate with her students but also dodge potential backlash from the administration. The research she'd uncovered sparkled with potential. It wasn't merely about Roman punishments, but rather the lessons in resilience, advocacy, and justice that threaded through those historical narratives. Yet, transforming this potential into a cohesive lesson plan felt like constructing a fragile bridge over a turbulent river. Determined, Marissa started drafting her presentation with a newfound clarity. She would not shy away from the brutal truths. Instead, she would frame them in a way that invited her students to think critically. It was essential to establish a connection between their lives and the struggles faced by those in ancient Rome. Her grandfather's struggles against the corrupt legal system became a vital catalyst for her teaching, transforming her personal narrative into a lesson, one that could either shatter illusions or empower her students. Marissa envisioned her classroom as a space of discourse, where students treated historical narratives not just as stories, but as mirrors reflecting their lives. Incorporating elements of critical thinking, she planned activities that would allow the students to engage in role-play, debating ethical dilemmas surrounding justice, treatment of individuals, and the evolution of laws. What if they could argue both sides of a punishment? What if they could rewrite history? These thoughts ignited her enthusiasm. As she worked, the minutes turned into hours, yet each keystroke churned with purpose. The mounting excitement masked her fears momentarily, but pockets of doubt crept back in as she considered what her colleagues might say. Mr. Thompson's disapproving gaze flickered in her mind, alongside the murmurs from parents who might see her lessons as radical. But were these trepidations genuinely about her teaching, or were they veiled reflections of her own insecurities, echoing her grandfather's defeat? Suddenly, a startling clarity washed over Marissa. Her task was not solely to teach history, but to instill courage within her students. She wanted them to question, to become advocates for truth, even if that meant navigating uncomfortable waters. The pulse of authenticity surged through her veins, reigniting her resolve. As if struck by lightning, she stood up, her heart racing not just from fear, but from conviction. The time had come to confront the uncomfortable intersections between past and present, and she would not shy away. Her students deserved an education that sparked critical thought, not one confined by fear of authority. With renewed determination, she set to work crafting her closing slides, each word designed to incite reflection and conversation. She would give her students the tools to reflect on the injustices not just in history, but in their own lives. The tension bubbled within her, a mixture of excitement and dread, but what lay beyond the horizon of this endeavor felt astonishingly liberating. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about awakening a sense of agency and justice. As she prepared for the next day's lesson, the day she would reveal her approach to the class, another unnerving thought surfaced: would the school board be ready to witness the spark of rebellion she planned to ignite? As the weight of that question settled in her gut, Marissa knew that the moment of truth was rapidly approaching, and the path she was charting could alter the course of not just her career but the lives of her students. The real question loomed larger than ever: could she bear the fallout if her students truly awakened to the harsh realities of their history? The classroom buzzed with pre-class chatter, energy swirling like a storm around Marissa. She stood before her students, visualizing the dialogue that would soon unfold. The weight of her mission bore down on her, yet the flicker of anticipation stirred something deep within. Today was not just another lesson, it was a beckoning toward truth, an invitation for her students to probe beyond the constraints of the past and question the narratives they had been fed. As she began, she introduced the first historical punishment with intention, laying down the gauntlet for her students' imaginations. Imagine living in a time, she said, where justice was less about fairness and more about spectacle. The students' faces reflected a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Marissa welcomed it, knowing that discomfort was the starting line for growth. She tread carefully, watching their reactions, gauging their engagement while suggesting uncomfortable truths. Let us discuss what punishment means, she continued. Is it merely a tool for retribution, or does it serve as a lesson for society? Let us debate. She initiated a role-play exercise designed to thrust them into ancient Rome's complexities, assigning them perspectives of various stakeholders: the accused, the judge, the public. Sparks ignited as they began to argue, their voices rising with newfound conviction. Marissa could feel it, the classroom transformed into a living forum, where ideas squared off in a duel of critical thought. But within her exhilaration loomed an alarming shadow. What would happen if the debate spiraled out of control? What if the conversations ventured into realms that would catch the eyes of prying administrators? The anxiety clung to her like a wet blanket, but she shook it off, reminding herself of the very reason why she had taken this risk. Soon, a hand shot up Maya, a bright student known for her analytical prowess. Is it ethical to use punishment as a deterrent, or does it just perpetuate a cycle of violence? Shouldn't we seek rehabilitation instead? The room went silent, and all eyes turned to Marissa, whose heart raced at the pointed question. This was uncharted territory, a test of the depth of their discussion. Marissa paused, pulling from her own experiences, the struggles of her grandfather whispering behind her thoughts. That's a valid concern, Maya. Punishment in itself is a multifaceted issue, where ethics clash with societal expectations. It's a reflection of what we value: retribution or rehabilitation. Discussion unfolded like a tapestry, threads of argument woven together, diverging and colliding. Each student's voice contributed to a broader narrative about justice, agency, and the ripple effects of choices. The moments of challenge, disagreement, and finally understanding made her pulse quicken with shared discovery. Yet, as the bell rang, signaling the end of class, a note of dread intertwined with her enthusiasm. Marissa glimpsed Mr. Thompson standing just outside the door, arms crossed. The disappointment in his posture weighed heavily on her. Had she crossed a line? Was it too radical, even for her? The tension hung thick in the air, a silent confrontation looming between them. She steeled herself as he stepped inside, piercing gaze focused on her with an intensity that felt like scrutiny under the spotlight. "Interesting approach you have here, Marissa," he said, voice steady yet edged with an implied challenge. "We might need to discuss this lesson further." The ground beneath her felt unsteady, the chaos of so many voices now threatened to spiral into her reality. Marissa faced him, the stark choice illuminated before her: would she defend her vision, or would she retreat? With her heart in her throat, she readied herself to embrace whatever consequences would follow for the sake of her students. Could she hold her ground against the discomfort that brewed in the wake of their shared enlightenment? The confrontation had just taken its form, and uncertainty gripped her with both fear and resolve. This was only the beginning, she sensed. A shift on the horizon. Would she rise to meet the impending challenges, or stumble in the wake of the truths that had started to unfold? Marissa's resolve solidified as she took a step forward, closing the distance between herself and Mr. Thompson. His expression was inscrutable, a mask concealing whatever judgments lurked beneath. Yet, she could see the fissures of doubt forming in her own mind. The weight of the confrontation pressed heavily against her chest, as if each inhalation brought a new wave of fear. "I believe the students are capable of grappling with complexities," she asserted, her voice steady enough to mask the tremor she felt inside. "They need to understand history in a way that challenges preconceived notions, not just rote memorization. If they can't engage critically, how will they ever grow?" He studied her for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly as if weighing her sincerity against the constraints of the curriculum. Marissa felt the tension thicken, transforming the air around them into something tangible. This was not just a discussion about a lesson plan, it was a confrontation of educational philosophy, personal growth, and institutional boundaries. "Relationships in education matter," Marissa pressed, emboldened by an intrinsic belief she hadn't fully acknowledged until now. "It's crucial for students to feel safe to explore uncomfortable truths. Isn't that what we want? Young minds prepared to challenge injustices rather than passively accept them?" To her surprise, a flicker of surprise crossed Mr. Thompson's face. She noticed his curiosity mingled with caution as he leaned back slightly, folding his arms. "That's a noble aspiration, but you're treading on thin ice. Not every administrator shares your enthusiasm for a radical pedagogical approach." A pang of recognition surged within her. For too long, Marissa had compartmentalized her role as a teacher, playing it safe and avoiding confrontation. No more. The spark ignited by her students' engagement and her own evolving perspective triggered an urgency within her that demanded action, not inaction. "I'm willing to take calculated risks if it means creating a transformative environment," she stated, pushing aside the gnawing fears. The truth loomed larger: she couldn't let doubt undermine her commitment to the very essence of her role. Then that commitment needs to be balanced with awareness of the consequences, Mr. Thompson cautioned. This conversation could lead to uncomfortable scrutiny. You may have overstepped today. The gravity of his words momentarily immobilized her, but as the moment stretched out, a realization crystallized in her mind. She was on the brink of a personal development that could reshape her trajectory, not just as a teacher, but as an individual committed to integrity and progress. I accept that risk, she replied, her voice firmer than before, revealing a flicker of newfound courage. If not for myself, then for my students, and their ability to navigate the world critically. They deserve to understand that their voices have power, and that their perspectives can shape the future. As those words exited her lips, she felt an undeniable surge within, a blend of fear and exhilaration that coalesced into an unwavering determination. The groundwork for her own evolution had been laid. Mr. Thompson maintained his scrutinizing demeanor, but Marissa sensed the shift in the energy between them. Very well, Marissa. We will discuss this further, but know that I will be observing closely. He nodded slightly, a complex blend of respect and warning, and turned to leave. Left alone in the classroom, the echoes of her students' debates reverberated in her mind, tangling with the weight of the responsibility she bore. She glanced around, feeling both the stakes and the significance of her choices hanging in the air like a charged atmosphere before a storm. But what would be the next step in her journey? Would her bold assertions give her strength or lead to peril? The path ahead loomed uncertain, her heart racing as she pondered the depths of her convictions. In that charged silence, Marissa realized she would have to face not only the scrutiny of her peers but also the introspective challenge of her own beliefs. The world outside the classroom stood on the verge of transformation, and she could feel the winds of change stirring again. The moment had come. She was prepared to embrace risks, but at what cost? As the classroom door clicked shut, Marissa stood at the front, engulfed by the silence that followed her encounter with Mr. Thompson. The walls felt closer, as if the very structure of the school absorbed the gravity of her bold declarations. This should have been a moment of triumph, yet it left her grappling with an unfamiliar blend of exhilaration and dread. Her heart pounded as she focused her thoughts on the direction they would lead. Marissa paced the perimeter of the room, her footsteps echoing against the wood floor. Each step reverberated with questions. Was it reckless to take such a staunch stand? Was she equipped to withstand the possible repercussions? As she reflected on Mr. Thompson's warning, doubt materialized, swirling like a tempest in her mind. But lurking beneath the waves of uncertainty lay a nascent fierceness. Her students' eager faces surfaced in her memories, the way their eyes widened in excitement when they debated those uncomfortable truths. The potential to ignite passion in them was worth risking her own comfort. This wasn't just a teaching strategy, it was a mission, one she had barely begun to embrace. She paused, absorbing the classroom that had become a battlefield for ideas. The poster boards showcasing student projects were not just decorations, they were testaments to the creativity she had fought so hard to cultivate. She needed to remind herself she was a catalyst, not merely a facilitator of tired narratives. Marissa's mind flitted to her phone, tucked inside her bag. The weight of the device felt heavier than before. What if she sought out resources that aligned with her newfound resolve? She pulled it out and began to scour educational forums and pages, searching for teaching techniques that fostered critical thinking without sacrificing curriculum standards. As her eyes scrolled down the screen, excitement bubbled within her, a map unfolding with pathways to explore. Her phone buzzed, jarring her from her thoughts. It was a message from April, one of her most engaged students. Mrs. D, can we talk about that discussion on historical perspectives? I have some ideas I want to share. When are you free? The urgency of the message jolted her into action. Here was an opportunity to engage beyond the confines of her lesson plan. Inviting students into the dialogue would not only strengthen their understanding but also guide her as she navigated this new territory. She quickly typed back, absolutely. Let's meet after school tomorrow. I can't wait to hear your ideas. With a sense of purpose, she logged out of the educational forum and began drafting a plan for the upcoming discussion. Borrowing from multiple frameworks, she resolved to create an environment where students felt safe voicing their perspectives, especially ones that diverged from the norm. She would introduce historical cases where dissent sparked change, compel them to analyze consequences, and collaboratively build understanding. Her classroom would be a crucible for transformation. But alongside this thrilling prospect loomed the shadow of Mr. Thompson's vigilance. She would have to be meticulous, crafting each lesson to ensure it adhered to the school's overarching goals while championing her own. Would that balancing act prove sustainable? As the hours waned, the once visible threads of doubt began to fray into determination. Each decision she made now intertwining with a newfound resolve to redefine her identity as an educator, one rooted in empowerment rather than compliance. Before leaving the classroom, Marissa took a moment to glance around. The sundown light poured through the windows, casting elongated shadows across her desk, a reminder that each day was an opportunity to cast her own shape on the fabric of education. Tucking her plans into her bag, she stepped outside, inhaling deeply as she embraced the evening air. The stakes felt heightened, yet strangely exhilarating. It was in the act of creation that she could truly find herself. But what awaited her tomorrow? As she anticipated the conversation with April, a tempest of apprehension and excitement surged within. Would her ideas incite enthusiasm, or would they draw the scrutiny she feared? In the quiet of the moment, one question echoed: was she ready to reclaim her authority in a system many deemed unchangeable? Tomorrow might hold the answers she sought, or it might unravel the very fabric of her hopes. Marissa arrived at school the next day with a potent mix of excitement and trepidation. The morning air felt electric, swirling around her as students filled the hallways, shuffling between classes. Each face flashed a reminder of the responsibility resting on her shoulders. Today was not just another teaching day, it was an opportunity to embrace change, both for her students and herself. After the first bell rang, signaling the end of homeroom, Marissa took a deep breath. She could feel the weight of her commitment pressing down, but this was a weight she welcomed. She headed to her classroom, nerves tingling as she arranged the desks in a circle, a layout foreign in its defiance of traditional formats. It felt appropriate, a sharing of thoughts rather than a unilateral flow of information. This was her first step toward revolutionizing the dialogue within her classroom, but would her students follow her lead? Just before the class began, April slipped in, her enthusiasm palpable. "Thanks for meeting with me, Mrs. D," she exclaimed, her bright eyes sparkling with ideas. Marissa felt a wave of reassurance wash over her. This was why she fought to reframe her teaching philosophy. It was moments like these that confirmed her purpose. As the class settled in, Marissa opened with a thought-provoking question tied to their recent lessons. What if history remembered figures like Martin Luther King Jr. or Rosa Parks as troublemakers? What does it take to shift narratives? She watched as students leaned forward, brows furrowing in contemplation. April raised her hand eagerly. "I think people see them that way because it's easier to follow what's accepted rather than challenge it." The comment sparked a ripple of agreement around the room, and Marissa felt herself smile, buoyed by their engagement. They were grasping what she hoped to instill: critical thinking over passive acceptance. Encouraged, Marissa guided them through an examination of historical dissenters and the power dynamics around them. She led discussions that probed their thoughts on authority, justice, and morality. Each question sculpted a richer landscape of debate, and as they exchanged ideas, Marissa could sense their feelings blossom into a blend of empowerment and curiosity. However, the voice of doubt lingered beyond the sounds of fervent discussion. Each time someone voiced a controversial perspective, Marissa felt her pulse quicken. What if Mr. Thompson appeared? What if he deemed their conversation inappropriate? She reminded herself of her purpose. These discussions were transformative, and her mission was to foster an environment where students could confront uncomfortable ideas. As the hour unfolded, one student posed a troubling question: what if challenging someone's beliefs makes them angry? Aren't we supposed to respect those views? The weight of that inquiry pressed heavily in the air, causing Marissa to pause. The classroom fell silent, all eyes upon her. Respecting views doesn't mean you agree with them, she replied, her voice steady. It's about understanding their roots to create dialogue. Think of dissent as a form of respect and invitation to grow, rather than a confrontation. And there it was. The essence of her teaching hung in the balance. Sustaining thoughtful conversations may shake foundations, she continued, but it's through the shake-up that we find real insights. She felt exhilarated and terrified. This was it, the clarity she sought to instill in her classroom. As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, a mix of excitement and apprehension flooded her. The students filed out, each buzzing with newfound energy. Marissa remained seated, taking in the day's discussions as victorious fragments, grappling with the implications of her choices. But in the solitary moment, the looming figure of Mr. Thompson filled her thoughts, recalling his warning with stifling clarity. Would the enthusiasm she had sparked incite change, or would it attract his scrutiny? She couldn't afford to be complacent, and as she pondered the implications of today's dialogues, uncertainty clawed at her resolve. As Marissa gathered her things, she sensed her actions would invite further challenges. What risks would she take next? And more importantly, how would she respond when faced with opposition? In the realm of education, the stakes were never merely academic. They were deeply personal. Tomorrow held the promise of confrontation and reaffirmation. She would have to find the courage to face Mr. Thompson head-on. In doing so, the possibility of seniority in her position, the balance between compliance and passion, would be tested in ways she could not yet fathom. Marissa entered the school the following morning with a steely resolve that washed away the residual trepidation from the previous day's fervor. The halls buzzed with indistinct chatter, students racing against the clock to make it to class, but for her, time itself felt suspended. Today was not only a chance to solidify her newfound teaching philosophy but also a day that loomed ominously with the prospect of confrontation, a test of her professional boundaries. As she settled into her classroom, the circle of desks shone like a beacon of her commitment to reform. She felt a surge of confidence, knowing that engaging students in dialogue was a path she must tread consciously, balancing curiosity with caution. The anticipation of learning was palpable, but so too was the threat of Mr. Thompson's disapproval. The first students trickled in and noticed the seating arrangement. Curiosity flickered in their eyes. "What are we doing today?" April asked, clearly excited. Before Marissa could respond, the bell rang, signaling the start of class. "Today," she began, gathering their attention, "we're continuing our exploration of dissent and authority. Our focus will be on how narratives can be twisted, particularly by those in power." She watched their reactions, ranging from outright excitement to skeptical glances. The pressure pushed in around her, but her commitment to stimulating their minds surged. Marissa prompted a discussion around current events, an issue causing visible tension in their community. As students put forward passionate opinions, she noticed the room heated with emotion. The hard questions surfaced quickly, igniting their thoughts. What if the person in power shapes history to fit their agenda? Can those who challenge injustice ever find balance in their cause? She waded through their comments, quieting the excited murmurs, commanding their focus. The dialogue became a collective dance of viewpoints, a rhythm integral to the learning experience she aimed to cultivate. Yet, the notion of Mr. Thompson's watchful eye hung heavy over her, a reminder of her precarious position. Just as one student proposed an idea that declared the government's actions unjust, the door swung open unexpectedly. There stood Mr. Thompson, his expression inscrutable, framed by a stream of hesitant sunlight that poured in behind him. A shiver ran through Marissa, a visceral reaction to his authoritative presence. She swallowed hard, redirecting her focus on the students who now looked to her for leadership. "Respecting authority is essential, but so is questioning it," she said, her voice unshaken. "It's our responsibility not to turn a blind eye." The class reacted, some nodded, others appeared conflicted. Her heart raced. Could she maintain control amid this challenging exchange? With each contribution from her students, she was conscious not to stifle their enthusiasm or risk drawing the ire of Mr. Thompson. The tension was palpable as she steered the discourse. Words swirled, perspectives collided, and for the first time, she felt a tangible bond forming a shared pulse of intellectual exploration despite looming judgment. As the class drew to a close, Mr. Thompson leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, a silent guardian waiting to appraise her performance. The students filed out, still buzzing with passion, leaving Marissa's heart hammering in her chest. She felt victorious but vulnerable, exhilarated yet anxious about the inevitable judgment awaiting her. What now? She wondered, staring down the hall. The confrontation she had anticipated swelled with possibility. There was power in those discussions, but it came with a cost of potential fracture in her relationship with Mr. Thompson. Would she stand her ground, or would she falter beneath his scrutiny? The moment hung heavy as she gathered her belongings, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Marissa realized something essential: this experience wasn't just about her students, it was also a crucible for her growth as an educator. It was clearer than ever, she had to confront Mr. Thompson, the personification of her fears, and define her bounds of authority. The stakes were high, and no matter the outcome, she felt the heat of change rushing forward, igniting a passion she couldn't suppress. Tomorrow promised not only clarity but a decisive confrontation that could break or strengthen her resolve. This was the moment to choose her path. Marissa paced the empty classroom, her stride steeped in a mixture of anxiety and determination. Each step felt weighted by the question of how she would navigate her impending confrontation with Mr. Thompson. The silence of the room closed in around her like a vice, amplifying her thoughts. Was she ready to defend her teaching style, her philosophy? With the students gone, the joyful chaos of their discussion had faded, leaving only the echo of voices reverberating in her mind. Respecting authority is essential, but so is questioning it. She had spoken those words as if they were her lifeline, yet even now, they felt like an invitation to danger. The high stakes of her passion for teaching collided with the mundanity of administrative expectations. Was she prepared for the repercussions? A flicker of doubt crept in, momentarily suffocating her resolve. Perhaps Mr. Thompson's intent wasn't malicious, maybe it was this rigid structure of education that shaped him into a figure of authority. The thought rattled her, but the awareness only heartened her spirit. If she was going to aim for change, she had to step out from the shadows. As the final bell rang, heralding the mass exodus of students, Marissa took a deep breath, sharpening her focus. The hallways began to fill again with laughter and hopes of a weekend, but for her, the reality was more immediate: she needed to confront Mr. Thompson. In the company of colleagues, she caught snippets of casual conversations laced with laughter. Yet, a purposeful silence cloaked her, it settled over her like a heavy shroud. The notion that she could change lives through education burned brightly within her, but so too did the fear of isolating herself from the support of her peers. Finally, Marissa spotted Mr. Thompson in the faculty lounge, exchanging pleasantries with other teachers. He seemed at ease, yet the thought of facing him made her stomach churn. She couldn't delay any longer. The quiet fire of her determination simmered until it peaked. This was her moment. "Mr. Thompson." Her voice broke through the atmosphere like the first light of dawn. He turned slowly, surprise flickering across his features, giving way to curiosity. "Marissa, you wanted to discuss something?" "It's about my teaching methods," she said, her tone steady though her heart raced. "The approach I took in class today. I believe it ignites vital conversations among students, even if it raises challenging questions about authority and ethics." He remained impassive, arms crossed, his skeptical demeanor serving as a wall. "You're walking a fine line, Marissa. There are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. Students need structure. That structure doesn't need to come at the expense of their critical thinking. If they only learn to accept what they're told, what good does that do?" The words spilled from her lips faster than she could rein them in, each heartbeat echoing the fervor of her conviction. From the closed expression on his face, she felt a flicker of anxiety. Would he dismiss her? Would he invoke punitive measures against her teaching style? A new vulnerability washed over her, one illuminated with the revelation that her educational philosophy wasn't just theory but something worth standing up for. "Do you really believe challenging authority nurtures their growth?" he asked, skepticism piercing through his words. "Yes," she replied, meeting his gaze with a fierce determination. "Life is not black and white. I want them to see the world that way, to engage, to question, to evolve." For a moment, the air crackled between them, tension ripe with the possibility of confrontation. Marissa sensed her heart pounding in her ears, each beat a reminder of the transformative power of education she clamored to harness. "The time has come to face what kind of educator I want to be," she thought, steeling herself against the uncertainty of his response. He studied her, an inscrutable expression shadowing his eyes, as if he were weighing her worth against the expectations he held dear. Then, a challenge emerged in his voice. "If you choose this path, be prepared to defend it. You may find it harder than you anticipate." Those words hung in the air, balancing promise and confrontation, pushing her further into uncharted territory. As she stepped away, each heartbeat resonated with anticipation. She could sense the silence shifting within her, a precursor to impending change. Marissa's resolve crystallized: she would not simply be a teacher awaiting approval. She would become a catalyst for reckoning. Would her convictions inspire the students or place her at odds with an authority she never sought to challenge? Each step away from him became a step toward defining her new purpose. The question lingered ominously: how far would she go to embody the change she advocated for? The answer was uncertain, but the resolution was gathering strength, drawing her toward the crucible of her evolution. Marissa stepped outside the faculty lounge into the bustling hallway, her mind racing. Mr. Thompson's words trailed after her, resonating like a distant thundercloud. "Be prepared to defend it." The stakes felt daunting. She had ignited a spark of dissent against the very system she was part of, but could she keep that flame alive? Her classroom was a vessel for self-discovery, not just for her students, but for herself. Marissa envisioned lively debates, students questioning and challenging, eager to dissect the world around them. Yet that vision shuddered under the weight of potential backlash. What if her methods alienated her from her peers? What if they turned her into an outcast within a profession she loved? With each step through the crowded hall, she felt both liberated and vulnerable. A knot twisted in her stomach. The initial euphoria of standing up for her beliefs gave way to anxiety. The truth loomed heavy: she would need allies to sustain her newfound path. Recalling her conversation with a few colleagues, Marissa decided to approach them one by one. They were smart, passionate individuals, her potential allies. If she could foster conversations with them, maybe she could influence how they viewed her unorthodox teaching methods. Her first target was Jeremy, the social studies teacher known for his progressive views. She found him at his desk, sorting through papers. "Hey, Jeremy. Got a minute?" she asked, trying to sound more confident than she felt. He looked up, curiosity bubbling in his eyes. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I just had a discussion with Mr. Thompson about my teaching style." Marissa leaned against his desk, her voice steadying as she spoke. "You know, I think it's important that we encourage the students to question authority rather than just accept it blindly." Jeremy nodded, a spark of interest igniting in his expression. "Absolutely. I've been thinking about that too. But it's tough when we're up against the administration's expectations." Their discussion flowed easily, each shared conviction reinforcing her determination. Jeremy not only understood her concerns but also reinforced them, describing how he had faced scrutiny for allowing his students to challenge historical narratives. Their conversation pushed Marissa to articulate her vision more clearly, and as she did, her confidence began to rise. After chatting for almost an hour, Marissa left Jeremy's classroom feeling invigorated. He had offered insights that redirected her focus. The conversation wasn't just about changing her teaching style, it was about cultivating a movement, no matter how small, among fellow educators who believed in fostering critical thinking. With a clear goal taking shape, she sought out Emily next, the creative writing teacher whom she admired. Building relationships with like-minded colleagues felt like assembling a network of support she would soon need to fortify. She found Emily sipping coffee in the break room, her fingers stained with ink from a recent project. "Emily, do you have a moment to chat? I've been reevaluating how we approach teaching. I think we could collaborate," Marissa proposed, her words spilling with urgency. "All ears. What's on your mind?" Emily looked genuinely intrigued, and that buoyed Marissa's spirits even more. As they talked, the underlying sense of shared purpose forged a connection. Sharing personal teaching philosophies elucidated their mutual goals. Emily mentioned her own struggles with students who felt lost in conventional expectations, reaffirming Marissa's feeling of isolation but also providing a palpable sense of camaraderie. Hours later, she returned home with a flickering flame in her chest. Change was no longer an abstract concept, it was evolving into a tangible pursuit, bolstered by the connections she had begun to forge. Each new conversation pieced together a clearer vision of what a supportive community of teachers might look like, one that embraced challenge and drew strength from collective ideas. But as bedtime approached, doubt, too, whispered from the shadows. Were her efforts enough? She still felt the weight of Mr. Thompson's skepticism pressing on her resolve. How could she ensure that not only her peers but also the students would feel empowered by her new approach? With these impending questions clouding her mind, Marissa lay in bed, tension coiling tightly around her thoughts. The moment of truth hovered just beyond her reach. She could sense it, tantalizing and elusive. Just how far would she go to navigate the complexities of education and the authority that defined it? A new challenge awaited her, one that would test her resolve, push her limits, and perhaps redefine her place within the institution she aspired to change. Opening her eyes wide under the dim light, she knew the next step in her evolution beckoned. Would she embrace the scrutiny and rise to the occasion? Or would she shrink back into the shadows of compliance? Marissa awoke the next morning with a steadfast resolve coursing through her veins. She glanced around her bedroom, sunlight filtering through the curtains and reflecting her renewed sense of purpose. Today was not merely a day of teaching, it was the beginning of her journey to transformation, both for herself and for her students. As she navigated to school, thoughts of her conversations with Jeremy and Emily replayed in her mind. Each exchange had been a light illuminating her path, a reminder of the importance of collaboration in pursuing change. This sense of community and shared vision would fortify her against the fraying threads of anxiety that clung to her resolve. Today was the day to embrace her role as an advocate for critical thought. Upon entering her classroom, she felt empowered. The circle of desks had become a vibrant arena where ideas could duel in the spirit of discovery. This was her sanctuary, and she would defend it fiercely. The students trickled in, chatting and laughing, their anticipation palpable in the air. Marissa greeted each of them with an enthusiastic smile, a striking contrast to her earlier trepidation. "Today, we're diving deeper into the complexities of justice," she announced. "I want you all to think about the power of your voice. Each of you holds the potential to catalyze change, just like the figures we've studied." The students nodded, intrigued by her energy. Today, she revealed a case study on contemporary social justice movements, asking students to draw parallels between historical dissenters and current advocates. As discussions blossomed, Marissa guided them to dissect not just facts but also emotions surrounding each issue. She invoked their empathy, fostering a sense of responsibility for their beliefs. As the conversation escalated, Marissa noticed Maya gazing intently, poised to contribute. "Are we expected to take sides in every scenario? Doesn't that create division?" she asked, her voice steady yet reflective. Marissa felt the weight of the question. This was the crux of her mission. "That's a vital concern, Maya. Navigating conversation is about growth, not division. We should learn to appreciate diverse perspectives while identifying injustice. Your voice matters." As the students delved into this intricate dialogue, the energy shifted. They were no longer just passive recipients of knowledge, they were vibrant participants shaping the narrative. Marissa's heart raced. She had conjured an environment where disparities could be examined without fear. Her classroom began to mirror the world outside, filled with complex feelings, uncertainties, but also opportunities. At the close of class, applause erupted, a spontaneous tribute to their shared learning. The students were buzzing with excitement and understanding. Marissa felt a swell of pride ripple through her. Remember, what we learn in here doesn't just stay in this room. You must bring it into the world, she reminded them, her voice steady with conviction. As the students filed out, Mr. Thompson lingered in the doorway, arms crossed, an enigmatic expression on his face. Marissa felt an uneasy flutter in her stomach, but she stood her ground. This was the moment for accountability. Marissa, I've been observing your class. You're pushing boundaries, he said slowly, a blend of warning and curiosity etched into his tone. I still have concerns. Yes, Mr. Thompson, she replied, lifting her chin with resolve. But I believe this is how we encourage young minds to engage with the world. Our students deserve to question what they've been taught. He furrowed his brow, his posture softening slightly. It's admirable, but you have to consider the implications. Not all parents will embrace this. Marissa nodded, feeling the weight of his concern but unfazed by the shadow of doubt. I understand the risks. But if we shy away from these discussions, we stifle their growth. They feel these issues in their own lives. Isn't it our duty to prepare them? A flicker of respect flashed through his eyes, quick but undeniable. I respect your passion, Marissa. You're dedicated to sparking critical thought. Just remember to navigate the complexities of this environment carefully. As he departed, she felt a heavy burden lift. She had voiced her truth, confronting the reality of her educational philosophy, and standing firm against the pressures of conformity. It was a turning point, a realization that her growth would be as much about the acknowledgement of dissent as it would be about acceptance of her role as an educator. As each passing day unfolded, Marissa transformed from an educator dwelling in fear to one who could confidently lead discussions that challenged the norm. Each student she engaged became a beacon of that transformation, an emissary of inquiry and courage. Weeks later, at the end of semester parent-teacher meetings, the feedback from students' families buzzed with energy. Parents expressed gratitude for her open dialogue approach and for creating an environment that encouraged thoughtfulness. Marissa felt an overwhelming sense of achievement. Her risk of challenging the status quo had blossomed into validation. Marissa stood taller, a confident educator with a lasting impact on her students and a willingness to engage with uncomfortable truths. No longer just an instructor of history, she had become an architect of justice, instilling resilience and understanding in her students. She realized the lesson was not merely about teaching, it was about empowerment. Marissa had not only embraced her identity as a transformative educator but had also paved a clear pathway for her students to do the same. As she stepped back from her desk, the whirlwind of success lingered in her heart. She had navigated uncharted waters and emerged with solid confidence, established competence, and an unwavering commitment to fostering future advocates for justice. In that moment, surrounded by echoes of laughter and passionate discussions ringing through the classroom, Marissa understood that sometimes, the most exhilarating journeys begin with courage, the courage to challenge, to inspire, and above all, to illuminate. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.